Hello there, everyone. It is an absolute privilege and an honor for us to be featuring Tony Robbins on the Tony Robbins podcast.
Thanks for the invite, ladies.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, sweetheart. Well, today's session, I'm joining for the very beginning again. These two ladies are going to take you on the journey, but, you know, it's February, and Valentine's Day is coming up right around the time we're filming this, or shooting this, I should say. And, you know, there's chocolates everywhere, and the idea of romance being promoted, and a lot of it feels false and saccharine, you know, just artificial. It's not authentic. I think a lot of people are really jaded about what love is because they've had love and now they associate pain to love. And it's not pain, the love is not the pain, it's the loss of love that people fear. And so I thought maybe we could have a little conversation here with me in the beginning and then you guys can take over about what really is love and its incredibly powerful force to shape us, because there's nothing on earth more powerful. Nothing will take someone to their knees quicker. I don't care the strongest warrior on earth, man or woman, than the loss of love. Yeah. Nothing lifts you higher than love. When you're totally in love, what's wrong with life? Nothing. You know, you don't need money, you don't need background, you'll figure that stuff out because love is that fuel. And I think it's so important that for people to think about that it is how we're wired. Babies that aren't physically loved, that aren't held, don't have kinesthetic love, develop something called failure to thrive syndrome and they can die. Love is our evolutionary advantage. You know, many species are born and, you know, the parents aren't there. You know, it's an egg that hatches. And so the evolutionary advantage is they've got horns or they got teeth or they got camouflage. But if a human baby's left alone in the forest, no one's there, it's going to die. Our evolutionary advantage is that we fall in love, which means we will put someone else's needs ahead of our own. And I think that's critical. And that doesn't have to just be intimate love, you know, in the form of physical intimacy. It can be the love of chosen family. It can certainly be the love of family. And we've certainly experienced a whole explosion of that with this modern family we have here and with our daughter who's just shy of 2 years old now. It's been an explosion of love, wouldn't you say?
It certainly has been you're an explosion of love. You are such a lover to all. You know, for those of you who have maybe ever had proximity or went to an event or attended one of our programs, you know, what people always say is that if there's 10,000 people, I felt like Tony was speaking directly to me. And they might be like way at the back of the stadium. And that's love. Love penetrates or permeates, is more accurately, space and time. And it's that intimacy of one offering their heart. And you do that so generously, so abundantly, Tone. I mean, every day. And no, it is who you are. It flows out of you. You're such a beautiful vessel of love in a form that's unexpected. You know, a lot of people look at you, this big physical stature and not know actually the real tenderness and sincerity that expresses as your isness of who you are as well.
Well, my mission is to have the people feel loved and cared for. Sometimes love is too strong, they don't believe it, but when you're up there sweating for 12 straight hours, the third day in, people get converted and they start going, this guy really means it. But, you know, I just got back from the JP Morgan conference, and what I was really touched by in that environment was Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of that bank, JP Morgan. The end of his whole talk and the thing that permeated the room was this feeling of kindness and love. That's the missing ingredient in our world. And to even have the bankers say that. And then, you know, of course, Mary Callan Erdo, some of you read my books on finance, and she's probably one of the most influential women in all of finance, manages, I don't know, $4 or $5 trillion now in business. And you just see she created an environment where everybody felt nurtured, cared for, loved, looked out for. But the most successful leaders that I know are heart-driven leaders. I mean, what makes you a leader is you care about something more than yourself. You care about something, whether it's your family, your kids, or your community. There's something you love. That's where energy comes from. That's what changes life. So I hope that we all know what love is. We all know we can't live without it. But we've all had disappointments and pain. And I hope that those out there will reconsider that love could be something you could open yourself to in the first steps of just kindness and just caring and just warmth and love that's outside an intimate relationship. And if you can find that outside the relationship, it can also lead to the intimacy that so many people are craving.
I know I've mentioned this before, but it always strikes me how, you know, even men in your life that are dear friends and just how they're moved by the expression of how you care for them, how you love them. It's very demonstrative. That happens on stage, that happens at home. You are that. You are that. And,
well, so are you, my sweet. And so is Mary B here.
Takes
That's
one
fine.
to know one.
Definitely takes one to know one. It's been 24 years since I hooked up with you, my weirdo.
That's true.
My wife is the weirdest human I love. By the way, she's the most. Weird wasn't on my list, but it's one of the great gifts. But the weirdness is touched with humor and love. Everything you do is love. You're the love to so many people. You're love to this whole family. You're the love to all the people in our companies. I mean, you exude it in every way, sweetheart. And that's why I'm so excited that you guys have kind of commandeered the podcast here, because so few people get to know what I get to know, which is you and Mary together, is just the love that you are and what all the gifts you guys have to share, the insights you have to share. And so I'm grateful to drop into the Tony Robbins podcast with you. But what I love is what comes out between the two of you, because unless people are part of our platinum partnership and things like that, where they all get to know you very well and you teach with me, a lot of people don't get to see that. So
it's true. I'm
grateful that people get your perspective. I want to hear your perspective on what is love and what drives love from your perspective.
You know, coming into this conversation, Mary and I were talking, and I was saying that I really look at love as an inside-out experience. And I think that sometimes that's, not that it can't come external in as well. It flows both ways, like all of life. There's an ebb and flow like an ocean. But I think sometimes it's imbalanced in our society of the expectation that love would be coming from the outside, rather than I am love. You know, I don't mean me. I mean, we are born as love. I think that is the most clear takeaway, being parents at this stage and watching our daughter and watching this essence just flow out of her as her. There's no doing in that. There's no thought in that. It emanates, it resonates, and love that essence. And watching her just shine, I think, is so extraordinary and reminds me of the fact that it is inside of us. It's in every one of us. It's our nature when we get out of our own human way, or we, drop the conditionings or the impressions that wired us in a way that, innocently makes us expect that I want love. And if you love me, you'll do this. We innocently can put all these demands on love, which of course, creates a restriction and doesn't allow love to flow. Yeah. And so I think the intent of this, or what we were speaking on, Mary and I, walking into this, was just that love is indeed everywhere. And coming into this month of where are we? Valentine's Day. February. And it's beautiful because it's focused on romantic love. But if you look at how we live our life and the beauty of our life, and we love each other so deeply and dearly, I think what's gorgeous about it is that it's more beautiful because of this extraordinary extended family that we have, Mary being one of them.
Yes.
You've brought more beauty to our life because of the sharing, and it magnifies life. Having our daughter magnified love, bringing Billy Becker, Master Co, or Diana, all these beautiful souls when my mommy and daddy comes. And I think that's the beautiful gift, that when we're walking this human experience, and maybe you are, if you're, listening to this right now, your, mind can have this narrative, but I want the one. And I think sometimes, we can miss the love that's in front of us when we're wanting that or expecting that or desiring it. Not to say that you can't have that desire, to fall in love, because, but love just a lot of times looks different. This constellation looks different than I ever imagined.
Yes.
The sharing in the experience of being a parent. And I think sharing is a basis of love as well,
No question about
it. But yet as we share, it grows. It grows, and we're in a culture these days where it's mine. It's mine. There's this gathering for oneself, and it's so beautiful to share in the gifts that God has blessed us with.
And the biggest mistake I think with love is thinking that love is something you go get, or relationship is where you go get love. When I think a relationship is where you go to give love. We all have practiced that. That's why there's more. There's never less for anybody. And I think the ultimate test in a relationship, whether it be a deep friendship or anything else, is, what are you willing to give for this? When you're in love with somebody, you give anything. You're lit up by what you give. You're not saying, what am I getting? The minute you start measuring, what are you getting? Now it's a trade. It's a horse trade. It isn't love anymore. It's an exchange. There's nothing wrong with an exchange. You can do that in business, but even the most successful business people that I know, they love their clients. They fall in love with their client, not their product or service.
Yes.
Or another way of looking at it is thinking our daughter who, we want to make sure she understood sign language before she could speak. So a lot of frustrations with children is they're trying to communicate, but no one understands. So now she speaks, obviously, putting a lot of words together. But she'll go to like her music class or something, and you guys know, she sits there, rubs her heart, which means, please. Then she'll say, please, and put her hands. She wants to hug everyone. Kids are like smacking her aside, get away from me. Doesn't stop her. She keeps coming like a love bug. No. And why is that? Because that's all she's seen.
Yes.
All she sees is us. Everybody hugs, kisses, loves, acknowledges. And love is also how you express it. A relationship is often the sum of communications you have. Dr. Gottman, who's probably the greatest expert in the world on intimate relationship love in terms of sustainability, he has a 91% success rate in watching a couple talk for 15 minutes and saying whether or not they'll be divorced within 5 years. And the reason is there are certain ways of communicating that turn people off. When you roll your eyes to your partner, when you're non-responsive, you look somewhere else when they're communicating to you, when you are telling your partner what to do, when you're trying to control them. There's certain issues that just kill the experience of love. No one wants to be controlled. But I think the way to look at the love in your life is say, how can I expand at the most basic level the caring and kindness I have for the people around me? I know that some studies have done with kids that are very violent. And there was a group in Texas that I worked with years ago, probably 25 years ago, and it was in this high school. And they got these kids to care for animals. And they learned to care and love an animal, and then it started transferring to humans. Maybe you don't have what you want yet, or you're in a relationship that doesn't feel like there's a lot of intimacy or closeness. Maybe it's time to get closer to some of your friends and build the muscle up, so to speak. Honey, you're unbelievable at self-love. I think it's because of your connection to God and your way of looking at life. But you give yourself a kiss, you say, bless me, not excuse me when you sneeze.
That might not land well.
But it's true. But it's so innocent and so true. There's no ego to it. It's not about you.
She'll walk into a wall and then be like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she says I'm sorry to her body and kisses it and so forth. Now, I'm not made that way, but I want to hear and I think it'd be great to hear the share of your view of self-love, because it has a negative frame for a lot of people. And other people say, well, I can't love others because I don't love myself. I don't know if that's that absolute. Where does your self-love come from? And I mean that in the highest regard, because it's one of the things that inspires me and Mary, does it not?
Absolutely.
Yes. It's beautiful because it's so pure. It's not, there's no affectation to it. It's not positioning. It's just total sincere love towards your own body and spirit. There's a kindness to yourself that most people don't have for themselves.
Without that tinge that is in media today of like, I just need to love myself.
I'm not talking about that crap.
Oh my gosh.
There's no, that's what I'm saying. No affectation. It's no positioning.
Yeah.
It's no virtue signaling. It's just really real.
Well, I'm asking myself as I'm listening to you guys talking right now, I think I really have the lens or the filter that life is a miracle. And I feel that our bodies, the fact that I'm alive blows my mind. And I know that sounds
just because
crazy.
You hung out with me for the last 24 years.
I'm serious.
Dragging you around the planet.
And I don't know if it's because, we've had different health challenges and so forth come to the surface that all of a sudden has a lens that I feel even more preciousness or an awakeness to the miracle of life. But I really have a sense like, wow, this body of mine, like it serves me so well. It supports me every day. That makes me grateful. It makes me want to take care of her. And by the way, I did not always have that filter. I did not always have that lens. I think it happened, or the shift happened coming into my early 40s. And I've always been an extender.
Yes.
I've always been a love and looking after, supporting people in my life. But I missed myself for so many years. That's the truth, Tom. I can't say I've always been this way. I think it's evolved through life, through pain, through having challenges with my health, and recognizing that, oh my gosh, I would do this for anybody, a beloved friend of mine, my mama, our child, anything. And yet, why wouldn't I offer that to myself?
Yes.
And as I'm, just observing my own thoughts, I think that really came from at a stage of, my health being compromised.
Yes.
And experiencing the physicality of that, the reality of that. And it really woke me up. It woke me up that, holy flip, this life this moment, this body is a gift. And I fell in love with serving her. I know that sounds crazy, but like I'll get out of the shower and I'll be like, all right, sweetheart, here we go, you know,
Yes.
and I'll think about it. And many times I'll walk down the stairs and it's like, okay, you know, how can I bless myself? And so I'll
Those are
ask
great
myself,
questions.
and then it's like, how can I bless myself? And it's like, oh, you know what? A lemon water, or it'll make me tune in, or causes me to tune in and recognize that, gosh, you know, I haven't drank a water recently, or, you know, I'm hungry, or do you know what? I'll just step outside for a minute because it feels good. Even if I'm going into a meeting, even if I have a call. Mary, you did it so beautifully today. You were like, you know, I actually thought it was so lovely. You were like, you know, I'm feeling chilled. I just want to go outside and stand on the seawall for 2 minutes and come back in here, and then we'll get ready for the recording.
Yeah, be in the right state.
But I loved that for you. I recognized that act for yourself. It was being true to yourself.
Yes.
And then when we do that, we have more
To give. Yeah.
I remember, I'm gonna tell the story just because it's coming through me right now, but I remember when we were going to Abu Dhabi, and I'm creating a context of this because another way I think to support ourselves is being sincere and true about maybe a yes or a no for ourselves. And we were going there for our Platinum Partnership event. And I think it was maybe like the day before we were landing, and you were invited to go to dinner.
With the Crown Prince, yeah.
And you know, I started to feel stress, and I was like, why am I feeling stressed? Because the truth was, it felt insincere for me, for my body and my being, if I was landing on the time zone to go to this dinner. And so, you know, before, if I was to say no, it would have come out clunky. Maybe I would have said no if I was frustrated, or I would have said no if I was angry. But, you know, in that moment, I recognized that, honey, I love you. This feels insincere for me. If it's meaningful for you, I'll go. But if it's not, it would be really meaningful for me to stay home.
So of course, I canceled the meeting with the Crown Prince by calling his people, and they said, you really don't want to do this because it would be seen as a slight in our culture, and that was
can't
certainly
cancel.
not where we're coming from. So Mary accompanied me, and we went to the dinner.
And I said to
Luckily,
Mary-
Tone has a JVB team, beloved, and I was like, I'll go. I slept on the plane.
And I thought it was so beautiful, Mary, because I remember I took joy because you were like, what on God's green earth am I going to wear? And, you know, we were entering that culture. And so, you know, I had a beautiful wrap. And so, Mary, you wore it like, you know, you were honoring and wore it almost as a burqa.
Yes.
And you borrowed one of my skirts. And I had so much fun dressing you up. And I thought you looked so stunning and so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that moment?
I do. I sent the picture to my mom. She said, you look like a nun. Not what we're going for, but
But the point is your sincerity in that, you know, I immediately just want to support you. And then you said, no, you got to do what's right in this situation. I was like, oh, okay. But you find the way.
You
But
find the
I
way.
really appreciate you making that honoring. I think loving yourself is as simply as doing those little things that
Yes.
you would do for someone you love. They're kind things, they're gentle things, they're conscious things. It's like creating room for them, or like me not wanting you to have to go through that. So, all right, I'll cancel the meeting. You know, it doesn't
Yes.
matter who it is.
Yes.
But then it's you at the same time saying, no, this is what's best. And both of us operating from a frame of we're not trying to get what we want. We're trying to serve the other.
Yes.
That's what love is. That's what you
Yes.
do with your child. That's what you do with your dearest friends. That's what you would hopefully do with your intimates. So what gets in the way of that is not that you don't just love yourself, because quite frankly, you know, I would say for a good portion of my life, I wouldn't say I didn't love myself, but I certainly didn't flow at the level it does for you. You've been a role model for me on that. Now it's different today, you know, at about to be 63 years old. I've hit a sweet spot at some point. But the reason I bring this up is if you're hard on yourself, being hard on yourself separates you from love. And so I've had to learn. I used to beat myself up. I hadn't done enough, created enough for you, for the family, for anybody, for anything. And what I've learned the last few years is when I beat myself up, it separates me. It
Yes.
makes, I'm not present for you. I'm not present for the family. So I really don't do it anymore, but it was a lifelong habit. But I also want people to know that if it's hard for you to, quote, love yourself, you can be kind to yourself.
Yes.
You can do some simple things for yourself you do for others. And if your wiring is, I got to do something of value, then do something of value. I want people to know it can be more than you can imagine, but you have to not just love yourself, you have to get outside of yourself.
Yes.
You got to find something to serve you care about more than yourself. That's when your fears and your angers and your frustrations disappear, is when you're serving. And as long as we're in our own self, it's just the nature of the mind is to dissect, break things down, find out what's not right, what's not good enough. So you can leave that by service, and you can also still be service of yourself. And then the other thing I just want to mention is what kills love more than anything else, or at least, you know, intimacy for sure, is the law of familiarity. It's the law of familiarity says that if you're around anything enough, you tend to just take it a little bit for granted. You know, somebody gets a brand new car and they're a young kid, or you're a young professional and that car represented some hard work you did forever, or had some image for you or some identity for you. Bless you, honey. And then you get in the car and it's amazing. And then one day there's a scratch and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody scratched my car. And then, you know, next day it's scratch. And after about 6 weeks, you got 4 or 5 scratches, it's a car, you know? But unfortunately, that's how people treat their relationship. They get used to it. The things in the beginning you would never say to your partner, you wouldn't say to a stranger, you say to your partner because it's safe and it's not kind. So I think we all have to constantly, you and I do this, all three of us do this. We know that our love is a accumulation of our communication. And we talk about how much we love each other at the time. I say, how did I get so lucky to get you? How did I get so lucky to have this extraordinary family? How did we get lucky to have our daughter? It's those conversations that are sincere, that are ongoing with yourself as well as your partner or with your friends that make it happen. But the law of familiarity is natural, unfortunately. So is gravity. But if you let gravity, you'll be on the ground. You have to push against it. And I think what a lot of couples and a lot of friends even need to do is reawaken the newness in their relationship. And that's just by getting curious again. And again, by being less judgmental. I always say to people, you know, people say, how do you have this ability to influence people? Or parents will come to me sometimes and say this to my kid. And, well, why do you want me to say it and you're not going to say it? Well, because they'll listen to you. But it's not that. It's that I don't judge anybody. I know we're all here at Earth School. I know we're all figuring it out. I know people make giant mistakes. I know most people have done or said something at some point they wish they never have. And our culture is totally unforgiving of that now. But reality is that's humans. And so you can't really, you're not going to consistently influence somebody for a greater good while you're judging them. But if you're loving them and they can feel that can get through almost any barrier. And that's how we've been on the suicide interventions. The people so stuck that, you know, there's no way you're going to get through them. But we get through to them, and I get through them as well by truly loving them. And if you do that not once, not conveniently, not as a technique, if you do that enough, you can get through to anybody. There is no force greater on earth, and there's no more attracting force to your life. All the beautiful people in our life, honey, that we consider chosen family are attracted because we love them unconditionally and they love us unconditionally. And it's like, it's a virtuous cycle that everyone deserves to have. But it requires you getting out of the conditioning of trying to protect yourself. And it requires to be vulnerable. It requires you to give up the negativity that you have just because you're afraid of being disappointed.
Yes.
And the jadedness, as long as you keep that jadedness, it might look cool or act cool, but it's going to leave you empty.
And as you're speaking, Tone, just thinking as well, the curiosity to, you know, who is this beautiful universe going to bring into my life today? Because you really never know. I mean, I just wanted to share as well a gesture of such love, such kindness, such creativity that blew me away, Tone, that I never considered or thought of. When Mary was carrying our daughter and she was pregnant, maybe you were about 7 or 8 months, I think. And you came to me and you were like, you know what, like this woman, our daughter wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, Mary. And I really think we should see if we could legally apply for adoption so that you could be an adoptive parent. And I remember going to bed that night and thinking like, that wouldn't have even occurred to me. And I thought it was so gracious. I thought it was so creative. I thought it was so kind. I thought it was so considerate. You walked in your shoes, and I'm only sharing this story right now because, you know, love can look so different and so much more beautiful than the narrative or the expectation of the story that we might have of something that we want to get. And then here life blesses us with this unexpected, unbelievably, like, just beautiful gift that I'll speak for myself, you blessed my life with, to be a mom. And, you know, I don't know what the word is, but the magnanimous, I don't know if that's the word, but that magnanimous gesture, Tone, of you walking in Mary's shoes at that time and seeing that, you know, you were only birthing our daughter, you were birthing being a mother, you know, and that was birthing as you could see it. It was so gorgeous to watch you at that stage and to watch, you know, all these different pieces and parts of yourself. You know, life is always reconfiguring within us, and every experience, you know, I really believe is calling us to be more of our true nature or recognizing our whole self. And I watched pregnancy as that for you. But I wouldn't have thought of that. I think of that many
but honey,
times.
you're selling yourself short. I wouldn't even bring it to you.
It didn't occur to me.
But I wouldn't have brought it to you if it wasn't your nature already. I knew that I wanted to make sure everything happened to us, that Mary knew since she'd brought this child on that she's mom too. And then I thought about, and I wanted to feel like, I worked, now what happens? This family separates and now I have no play in this child's life that she gave us the gift of sharing together. But I couldn't have done that if you didn't have the soul that you have that made me know that you and I made the same stuff, that you step in people's shoes all the time.
Yeah.
And by doing that, but my favorite part of that whole experience, besides you, Mary, knowing for sure that you have unconditional love and that she's your baby as well, was when we went to the judge, because this was kind of a breakthrough in Florida, and said we want to apply for the third parent to the three of us together. And the judge normally...
Actually, Mary, do you mind telling that story?
Why don't you share the story from your perspective?
I think it'd be beautiful from
Mary
your
was very
lens.
stressed that day. I said, Mary, if she says no, we're going to get this through, but they made it clear. They don't say during the session today. They tell you a couple weeks later. They're not going to give you an answer today. But why don't you share that? I think that's a great idea.
Our little one's in the window right now, just waving. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, baby.
Sorry.
Well, no, it's perfect, right on time out there.
She's the only Bobby.
So we had, we went through the legal paperwork and things for the application process, and this was all during COVID. So when we got a court date, they said it was going to be through Zoom, and
they came to the psych evaluation, all of us, and I was worried my wife was going to pass or not with the weirdness going on. You were too.
I was too.
Mary and Tony were preparing me.
My wife's going to
Don't
be
say anything
very playful.
too weird. No. And so we had this Zoom with the judge, and we're all, lined up like little ducklings on the couch,
holding
putting
her
our
on
best
our lap.
foot forward, and we've got our baby on our lap, and we're Zooming with the judge. And we're practicing, okay, we say Your Honor, and this is what we're applying for. And someone who had set up our Zoom, you know how the little name is on the bottom of your screen, and someone had set it up that said Robbins Family Zoom. So it was the three of us and baby. And I remember the judge, almost within the first 60 seconds of her coming on, she said,
First she stared at us. There was a moment where she looked up and stared at us, and we're all there on the couch, and we're feeling pretty full of emotion, and this is a key moment. And then
Go, Tone.
No, but then what'd she say?
Well, she said, I'm looking at this family right now, and I can see that you guys are a family. And so before we even she even pressed us on the questions that our lawyer told us. She'll ask you this, she'll ask you that. She could ask you anything, and I'm sweating bullets. Like, what is she going to ask us? And she felt it. She felt the love. Yes. I guess that's probably the point, is that
that's the point.
You could feel the love. The family was exuding that love. It wasn't about some right or wrong answer that we could give at that point.
Yeah. The energy of what she saw in front of her, she said, I feel a level of love here that I rarely see in my life. And she said, so I just want you to know, well, we can discuss all the details, but we're not going to wait. I'm going to tell you right now, you guys are clearly a family. All we're doing is making it official for you right now. It was quite a celebratory day.
It was.
But it's the experience of love that's unmistakable when it's authentic and real.
But
Not when it's theirs.
And what Sage said, Tone, is like your creativity and caring. My favorite riffs that you ever have when you're teaching is those ones on like, it's not about money. It's creativity and caring.
Yeah.
Your ability to give and your, contributions and your love. It's all comes back to creativity and caring. And I don't know, that for me has been the lesson of everything you've ever taught me. Wow. That it's like, even, and all different kinds of love. So even like when I'm writing a little note to my mom, it's like, how can I be more creative with this? And how can I really get through? So it's not just, if you're unmarried like me, or if it's not about that kind of love. Any dealing I have, if I'm writing to a brother or sister, an old friend, it's like, I'm always saying to myself, like, creativity and caring, how can they feel my love through? Yeah. And it's the essence of what you teach everywhere. Like, get creative, get resourceful, walk in their shoes, meet them where they are. What would light them up?
Yeah. When people think of lifestyle, they think of things. When lifestyle is all relationships.
Yes.
But as you said, it's not like, you have the money to do something. It's not that. It's thinking about how do we do it in a way that produces surprise or awe or feeling overwhelmingly appreciated or enjoyed. Or it's like, I live to create those moments for our clients, for our friends, for our chosen family, for each other. And nothing gives you more joy. I mean, in life, what gives us the lasting joy, not the temporary energy of excitement. It's almost always something where you grew where inside you, you faced something difficult, you grew. And then because you grew, there's an insight, there's a feeling, there's emotion, there's a greater strength, there's a greater capacity to care. And now you're able to share something. Like whenever we have something beautiful that happens in our life, what's the first thing you want to do is share with somebody you love, because it magnifies it. That's what relationship is. It's the magnifier of human emotion. So if you're both really messed up in a really terrible place, you'll magnify the negative. But if you're coming from just a warm, loving, kind, as simple as those words are, place, it opens the door for a deeper level of love for anyone.
It does. And I love, Tony, that you just said about growth as well, because if I think of this constellation and every day as a parent, and as I observe, both of you parent, as I observe you mothering, as I observe you fathering, as I observe this little lady in our life, and sometimes I'll watch you and I think like, gosh, I would never do that as a mom. And, when we are dropping and we are willing to get out of our human self and we drop our judgments and we just observe this beautiful love in life that, we are blessed with here now, wherever you are listening to this. It's a miracle. And it's a gift to share it with you too right now. But I do just want to say that I feel like I'm a better human being because, and I've been stretched. That whole process is certainly, as much as it's been a blessing, there's been moments where it's been a stretch. All the different pieces of you carrying, our daughter, and then, mind coming through. Will she bond to me? Will she want to go to me? You'll be breastfeeding. Like all these human, even if love is so blessed and life is so abundant, we all have those thoughts to transcend because they are just a thought. When I believed them, I really suffered. I doubted myself, or all the feelings of not enoughness, or you say beating yourself up. That can be part of this human experience. And I think a gift of love is taking responsibility for our inner stuff, our inner discord, and rising above that noise so that we can notice and recognize something different. And I'm amazed and humbled every day at just the beautiful, ordinary, simple moments. And
people are always surprised when they come see us and everything else. They expect us to be like giant partiers. I don't know what they expect. But we're home buddies with the littlest things in life that we appreciate. We certainly have the privilege of playing on a global scale and interacting with extraordinary human beings of every type you can imagine. But it's those small, intimate moments that make life lasting. And every study on happiness, and everybody wants to be happy, right? Or some version of that. They want a life that's meaningful. All of those show that the number one factor above all else is the quality of your relationships. The quality of relationships is the quality of your life. But in order to have that, I think we've got to certainly be kinder to ourselves, and you want to be the kind of person that you would love. Like I work hard to be the person. I have a hard time even saying it. You have no difficulty with it. I love myself, but I appreciate this man that I've become with God's guidance and my focus and effort and a lot of grace. But it's, I can look at my life and I can be proud of who I am as a human, no matter what anybody else knows. I know inside the journey that I've gone on, the people I've gotten to serve, the conversations I've had, the experiences of transformation within myself and within my businesses and with my friends and family and strangers. And so the accumulation of all that, also for those of you who think you're difficult in yourself, I don't know, some of it may come with accumulation of years too. I don't know. It's not a guarantee. Accumulation of years doesn't guarantee happiness. But I think there's a place for those of us who've been wired for contribution, wired for achievement, where there's a point where you finally have to plant the flag and say, okay, we've won this thing. But I think I want to leave you guys here before I turn it over to you with just thinking about holding yourself to a standard. I think the best relationship is somebody that you want to be more for than you even for yourself. Yep. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think one of the beautiful things about human beings is that we'll do more for others we care about than we will for ourselves. I think that's the humanity in humans. That's the beauty and the best part of us. And so you got to be worthy of that. And one way to do that is kind of set a standard for yourself. It's like in life or in business. What you don't measure doesn't get better, right? If you're going to make a business happen, there's no management if there's no measurement. So one of the things that I measure is I ask myself consciously over the years, and now it's pretty much automatic for me, but what level of love is this? And so I look at love as like 4 dimensions. I look at it as the first dimension is like baby love. And when I say that, I don't mean the love that you have for your baby. I mean a person whose standards are the love of a baby. Because the babies, if I said, are babies loving? We all go yes, and especially with our daughter, we feel that completely. No question about it. She's right over there peering through the glass right now. I'm being so good. But it's the truth is they're only loving and happy when they're getting what they want. Right? That's because that's the stage of development. It's about me, as it should be at that stage of development. But some people are 50 and they're still doing baby love. They're angry if you don't give me everything I want. Those relationships, if they last, they don't last very long. They might last in years, but they don't last in love. Because nobody wants to be in a place where you're always trying to get something from me. As I said earlier, you want a place to give. The second level of love is you could say, where am I playing right now in my relationship or my friendship or in my business even with the people around me? Am I demanding love or demanding attention, demanding everything? That's baby love. Then there's horse trading. That would be level 2. Second dimension, 2-dimensional love. And that's where, okay, I'm doing all this for you. But even if I don't admit it to myself, there's conscious trading, like I'm doing this so that you'll
get something.
Yeah, give me something. And there's unconscious horse trading. That's the person who gives until one day they get so mad because someone isn't giving back. So they've always been horse trading. And horse trading is not love.
Yes.
It's a transaction, as I said earlier. And a transaction might be fine, but even in business, transactions don't create raving fans.
And I've been both of those, by the way.
I was going to say, I've been sure.
A horse trader. I've been a
Me too.
selfish. We've
Me
all
too.
been all perspectives. If you're listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, I've been really stuck in that. We've all been stuck there at times. That's the gift, as we're evolving.
That's right. But if you can be aware of it, you can get yourself out of it. And awareness by itself can start to break the pattern. So I'm bringing it forward to you. And then there's the third dimension of love, 3-dimensional love, which is truly unconditional love, which is you love because it's who you are. You love, the biggest mistake you see in relationships is some people think they're going to punish their partner because if they compliment them too much or they're too nice to them, they won't have control over them. I mean, again, control and love don't go together. But when you withhold love, the person you always hurt is yourself. So very often you said earlier about, expressing love. You might express love to this person, they never give it back to you, but it comes back all around you in the other places because it becomes who you are.
Yes.
And other people whose hearts are open or are beginning to open will respond to you. And then the fourth level of love is loving someone even who's hurting you. Now, that doesn't mean you stay in a relationship like that with someone who's hurting you, but it means that you don't let them harm you. You don't stay in the environment, but you don't hate them. We know the Dalai Lama quite well, and I've spent some wonderful time with him. And he's such a beautiful soul with his humor and his laughter and his kindness. But I mean, imagine someone taking your heritage, taking your country, and also trying to kill you. And he still prays for the soldiers, not like, oh, I'm so much better than they are. Like he wants to be free of the guilt. He wants them to have joy in their hearts.
Yes.
Mother Teresa certainly did that. Nelson Mandela, one of the greatest human beings I ever had the privilege of meeting, to be able to take the people that imprisoned him for a quarter of a century and try to enter their world, enter their shoes. And what are they thinking? What are they feeling? We have a chance to touch people. I just got back from my aunt's funeral, and every person that got up to speak, I was so struck by what we all know, but we forget. It's like the littlest things we do touch other people. The littlest kindness, the littlest caring, the little bit of laughter, the little bit of focus and attention. And I just think in this month of Valentine's, maybe expand beyond Valentine's and say, where am I playing in my relationships? Level 1, 2, 3, or 4. Not beat yourself up, but if it's 1 or 2, it's time to step up. And that takes a little courage. It takes a little vulnerability. It takes some faith. But if you can, we're not all Mother Teresa. We're not all Nelson Mandela, but we all have the capacity. And we're not all do it all the time. But the more you go to places like that, the easier it is just to be unconditional in your loving. And like I said before, I don't know of a stronger force on earth to attract people to you in life, in family, in business, than to feel that there is a sincere putting of them first. In the financial world, the concept of, being in a position where you're a fiduciary, big F word. And what it really means is you put the needs of that person ahead of your own. And the law requires someone who's a fiduciary to actually do that. Well, what if your law of life was to be a fiduciary for the people around you, to be the person that looks out for their best interests first? And you don't have to worry about your own, because if you really do that, your life is so much love and so much friendship. And from that, so much opportunity and so much meaning that whatever was your biggest goal of your life before will look like a cartoon compared to the quality of life you'll create. So I encourage people to not measure with harshness, but just practicality, and say, how am I playing right now? And if I'm not there, and by the way, it can change moment to moment.
Yes.
And I've been one, and I've been 2 as well.
Yes.
But I pride myself in keeping to 3 and 4 as much as possible. The more you do it, the more it becomes your identity. The more it becomes your identity, the more it just happens naturally. It's not hard. It's just some new habits. Habits of kindness, habits of warmth, habits of putting yourself in the other person's shoes, and habits of honoring yourself as well in the process. The combination of that can be a revolution in somebody's life, in my experience.
Thank you, honey. I couldn't help but when you were talking about level 4, that, for those of you who may be transitioning in a relationship, because I think that's a great opportunity to practice this. A lot of times we think that, during a divorce or separation, that it's like, oh, there's no love there, or it's a loveless marriage. And yet maybe it's an opportunity in those moments for more love, not less, to lean into it. And even if you decide, and gosh, you know what, I choose not to spend the rest of my life with this individual, it's true for me and for us to, go a different way. Finding those threads of common ground, looking for ways to be kind. You'd shared a big part of your life. It doesn't have to be so painful. It doesn't have to be so clunky. We really can do it consciously and kindly. And if you didn't, and if you haven't, 20 years later, we have the opportunity, I think, to tidy it up.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the gift of grace. That's the gift of compassion. That's the gift of mercy. And that's the gift of this human experience, is that we've all been blind. We've all been unconscious. And so, and we all have an opportunity to realign and to tune and to offer what's more sincere here now.
I couldn't agree more, sweetheart.
I love you two human beings. I love this family.
You too. I'm going to turn you back over to this family of mine that I love so much and let you have just their perspective. I know that most of you, if you're listening to this right now, are still listening and haven't turned us off and go, oh, this is a bunch of BS, syrupy stuff. Then some part of your soul knows it to be true. So you don't have to make it a big deal. It's those little steps that start to link together into new habits. And then that shapes, it brings you back to your true character. I think the character we all have before we get conditioned by fear and pain and loss and disappointment and all the things that are just a part of the natural experience. And I'd just say also, it's like, what is love? The biggest way to have more love is to focus on what you appreciate and give up your expectations. I always say, the fastest way to change your life is trade your expectations, for your appreciation. And there's always some appreciation. When you do that, your whole world changes. And that's really the theme, I think, of what we're talking about here.
It is. I also want to maybe just acknowledge you and thank you. And thank you for those that are tuning in and listening, for sharing the Tony Robbins podcast. It extends to this family. And this wouldn't be happening, Mary. It was your vision.
Yes,
you,
absolutely.
You've created it. It's been your inspiration, and you just keep bringing these beautiful notions and topics of conversation. And I just want to say thank you, because your whole passion was the world deserves to know different faces of love. And I can't thank you enough for, having the vision of this and the inspiration of this. And you've worked so hard on this whole project. And Tone, thank you for sharing the Tony Robbins podcast. And for those of you
Mary B.
love you dearly,
I love
Mary
you
B.
dearly,
I
my
got a front
girls.
row seat to this love, and it's too beautiful to not share it, not put it out there.
Well, it's because of you that it is. And for those of you who tune in, thank you for being so cool and awesome and willing to share, just in have this family be expanded and have share our inner world with you. So thank you for your love of offering your heart and spending the time with us today.
Okay, guys, I've got to go to my scheduled meetings that are behind, but I'm so grateful you invited me to partake in this, and I'm going to turn you out, our family and our extended audience out listening in, to these two beautiful souls right here that I love so, so much. They're going to take over from here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tone.
Thank
You're always
you, Tone.
welcome here
Love you
at the
guys.
Tony Robbins podcast.
Thanks for sharing. Mary, I love that this topic has come up for us and that we decided to have a conversation, with Valentine's Day and the focus on romantic love, which is an aspect of love. But as we all know, it certainly is much more broad and beautiful than that love alone. I think sometimes in society or in life, we have the perception that love is coming from outside of ourselves. And with that, innocently, we as humans place demands or expectations because it's something that we want to get. I want love. I want you to love me. I want to find the love of my life. I want a mate. I want. And that perception or filter or lens of love is deducting because it's something that, number one, we don't have control of from the love of the outside. But truthfully, the love that we experience from my own experience is the love that we are. And I think that's the most beautiful awareness or reality, is recognizing that our nature is love.
That reminds me of how at some seminars, a relationship seminar, a date with destiny seminar, oftentimes, Tony, you guys have an exercise where you'll ask the audience to make a list.
Yes.
And say, write down all the things, think of your ideal relationship, think of your ideal partner, make a list of everything you'd like them to be. What do they look like? What do they act like? What's their sense of humor like? Everything. What's their favorite book? And people come up with these long lists. And then Tony will say, okay, now make a list of the love that you would have to be to attract that person that you just described. And we often have a little laugh because people's lists of how they would have to be as love is often a lot shorter than the list of that the other would have to give. So
in our media, social media, or the lens of the world, love, the word itself has been so distorted. The word itself has been so diluted or deducted, and that a lot of people innocently don't even believe in the reality that they are love or that love is possible. Love is, gosh, what's that prayer? Love is gentle and kind. Those two attributes are so missed. Love is gentle. It is kind. It's inclusive. It's accepting. There's an allowance. Having, our daughter and having a little one at this stage, and, she's just 20 months. And it's so remarkable to me that whether she pees on you, throws up on you, or every other bodily function that transpires, there's just this enjoyment, this appreciation, this adoration of the experience of the innocence and the purity. And I think through the filter, maybe through the, these movies or these ideal, or different cartoons that portray this, maybe princess and prince, and, this individual is going to come and, save you. There's a miss of the beautiful, awesome reality of how we are created. And when we connect to that, when we tune into that, when we tap into that reality, it's so beautiful, because then we just get to extend that. Yeah. We get to share that unconditionally, rather than expect that. And for those of you who are listening, maybe you think like, that's not true. That's not my experience. Just look to just find that truth if you can. Maybe it isn't with your partner, but maybe it's with a really dear friend, that it's like, I freaking love this person. There's nothing that they could do. It's just that unconditional love and acceptance. Maybe it's with your child. Yep. Maybe it's with your grandmother or your pet, your dog. Yep. I know that sounds crazy, but
I have felt that way, and you have made me feel that way before. And I don't know that this is too much of a stretch, but just to give you an example, a long time ago, almost about 10 years ago.
I don't know what story this is going to be, so that's
well, I mean, we're different people. As anyone listening is, you're a different person now than you were 10 years ago. Or, I mean, I'm foreshadowing to try to have some caveats about the story I'm going to tell. But I had not gotten sober yet. I was still drinking. Tony, I had met you guys. We were working on Tony's book, Money Master the Game. So I'm working hard, et cetera, and was here on business for long days and nights and sometimes weeks, staying at the hotel. And as I mentioned, I was still drinking at this time, sometimes more heavily than I would have liked to admit. And I was walking down the hotel hallway. I've never told this story, I don't think, to anyone. I was walking down a hallway and kind of like a pinball from door to door on uncertain, unsure footing. And not one of my best moments. It's hard for me even to picture the girl that was walking down that hallway, fumbling with her hotel key, trying to find the right hotel room. And I looked down the hallway and you were standing there. And I had a moment of like, I was mortified. I was shocked. I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. And I wanted to hide. There's nowhere to hide in a hotel hallway, right? And like, if I could have thrown a black hole on the ground and dove in it, I would have. And I'm just like, I mean, had this flood of emotion of like, there goes everything. There goes my life. There goes my job. There's no way I'm not going to get fired. I can't even stand up straight. And you came over and you were just like, hey, Mare.
Hey, Mary, you doing all right?
And I was like, I mean, honestly, probably what was I afraid of? I was probably afraid that I was going to lose your love because you and I were very good friends even at that point.
Yes.
It makes me emotional to think about because I was just like, I was terrified and ashamed and just thinking, she's never, everything that I've ever known with her is gone. And you were just like, looks like you need some help. Getting me into my room.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you remember this?
I do remember that story. And I love that that's what was stirred out through this conversation. I remember when you left, you didn't feel yourself and definitely continued to linger in my being. And I felt uneasy. And by the way, you know, innocently, we as human beings, you know, we feel these instincts. And I think it's so beautiful when we tune in and you know, act. And that was one of those moments. And I remember walking down the hallway and seeing you. And I had love and compassion for you. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get you in that room. I got to get that key and help you open that door.
Shoes off.
And you know, love is birthed through many moments of that where, you know, when you love, it wasn't about what I thought you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. I couldn't care less. You know, I cared about you and I wanted you supported and to know that, hey, I was there. And, you know, I'm just so surprised that you're sharing this conversation or this story right
maybe
now.
it's not the right place to share.
I think it's actually really beautiful. I think it's really beautiful because it's a reminder that love sees through a lens. There is, you know, love doesn't judge. You know, love accepts, it allows, it understands, it connects.
It's patient. I think
yes.
We're speaking of Corinthians. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the prayer that you were mentioning. I think the love is patient, love is kind.
Yes.
I expected to be met with disgust and judgment. And you just, it wasn't like, you weren't laughing. It was just, it felt nothing but compassion. And like, and that moment of love is what made me be like, something's got to change.
Well, that's beautiful. How many years have you been sober, Mary B?
I am going on 7 years.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. I haven't had a drink in 7 years. I can't believe it. And it's probably worth mentioning in the Love podcast, if alcohol is something that you don't have a healthy relationship with, I would not have been able to admit this. I would have been like, it is not unhealthy. In fact, it is the lubricant that I need for my emotions to go into that direction of, I mean, love is probably the wrong word there. That's not love, but for relationships, let's say.
Or life.
For life. I wouldn't have thought I would be able to function without it. And this is not an advertisement to do that. I'm just saying, if you hear this and any part of you goes, man, my relationship, I would have a lot less problems if I didn't have maybe some problems myself with alcohol or whatever your thing is. Everybody's got something probably. And when you find someone that will love you through that and you want to be better for, that's a powerful thing. And it's also an example of, it doesn't have to be your, you know, this isn't some romantic story. This person loved me enough to make me say, I don't ever want to be that. Because I was judging myself as disgraceful. And if that was my impression of myself in that moment, I don't want to be that for you. And you made me see that I don't want to be that for me.
Well,
and love does that.
Well, I think you just stumbled upon something that a lot of times culturally or in this world that we can miss, because love really does start with ourselves. And I simply reflected who you are, Mare, in that moment, or maybe possibly reminded you who you are. And I think we're all doing that, or we all have the opportunity to do that for each other. And that's the gift that's where we meet in this human experience. And by the way, if it isn't alcohol we all numb ourselves or can distract ourselves or, there's many different ways to do such things. And if it isn't alcohol, it might be food, or if it isn't food, it might be this, we can all walk down that path. And then there's another way, which is actually leaning into it and stepping through it and understanding what's coming up. I was thinking about this conversation and thinking about like, where does unconditional love fit in this society? And I think it, for myself anyways, or from my own experience more accurately, it's the understanding that we are all in this thing together. We all have this internal experience of mind that, there's those two voices within inside of ourselves. It's like the one that is a greater truth, or a broader truth, or the truth for ourselves. And there's the one that's kind of the naysayer, that's you can't do this or this, that, or the other. Like you said, shameful or disgust. That wasn't even my reference point. But I think that's so remarkable that we all have that flight. We all walk that path, no matter where we come from, what religion, what race, what education. And I think that juncture, that oneness, that we are all in this human experience. I mean, gosh, you look at people from Prince Harry, from, our beloved Twitch that, just, took his life most recently. And it's like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't think of maybe somebody in a position of that nature, or a certain level of fame, or that one might perceive that, oh my gosh, they have everything. But, we are still having to navigate that inner world of mind and the doubts and the fears and so forth, and hopefully question and inquire and transcend those pieces. I think that's the opportunity for us all. And I think that, recognizing that, the same force that beats my heart beats your heart, beats Ethan's heart, beats all of our hearts. Everybody that's listening, that is where we meet. I think that's gorgeous.
Sage oftentimes ends, I tease you because like you'll end many sentences with, that's where we all meet. And which I take to mean like that is the collective that psychologists talk about. That's the collective human experience. Mm-hmm. And so Tone teaches that we all have many fears: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of too much success. But the primary fear that we all meet in is this fear of we're not enough, not enoughness, insufficiency, we're not enough, and so we won't be loved. And
which is just a thought, by the way.
It's just a thought.
I'm not enough is simply just a thought. If we believe it, we really suffer. But it's just for those of you who are listening, we all have that thought. And if we believe it, we really go down a rabbit hole. And the gift of this human experience is the capacity to be able to question it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's exactly it. So I think you're saying it's just a thought. So for any of us who feel at times, in moments, it can feel debilitating. And I think that for people who take their life, for people who talk about struggles with mental illness or just, without even putting labels on it, just feeling like I can't do this anymore. It's usually like a feeling of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know which way to go. Any way I go, I'm not going to be enough. I'm not going to find an answer. And feeling that sense of overwhelm, like you don't have what it takes to do it, whatever it is. And you're saying, hey, when all that pressure feels like it's like physically on you, it is just a thought that you're believing.
Well, it is. If we believe that thought, that narrative becomes a part of our internal tapestry. That's a really painful reality. And I've been there. There's been so many circumstances that have come up in my own life that,
I would love for you to talk a little bit about like your own life. Give us a little touch for a second on like you and Tone have been together forever. We see these images of you guys. You're such a beautiful couple.
It's not to say that Tone and I haven't been to heaven and hell again and heaven again internally, individually and collectively. There's been times, I don't know, at the beginning of a relationship, of any relationship, especially, I can't say any relationship, that's not accurate. In more of an intimate relationship of a dynamic, we have more impressions or conditioning around an expectation of who they're supposed to be. And that's brutal. That's painful. I remember in the early days of I want you to be present for me. I want you to understand me. I want you to like all these
That
ridiculous.
long list we talk about
It's
that
so
people have for
ridiculous.
the other. Yeah.
And then when that person doesn't match that of your, crazy expectation of that, and then we go into our inside of ourselves and we suffer and it disconnect, and then we're not loving ourselves, never mind them.
Yep.
That gets weird and it gets clunky. And so I feel like the first, I don't know how long, you spend the first probably decade getting over yourself,
Yep.
getting over yourself and understanding yourself. And so that, you pretty much, I feel like Tony and I are at this stage, we're left with love and gratitude. Like we are left with love and gratitude. I love that man. And whatever makes him happy, whatever that looks like, I want that for him, and he wants that for me.
Yep.
And I think that's what I'd want for our daughter. I want her happiness. I have love and gratitude for the experience, but I have no expectation of that she needs to be something other than what she is. Right. And that's freedom. That's freedom. It's our demands. It's like, I love you if. I love you when you do this. I love you when you marry me. I want this. Once again, it's these weird, strange demands that we place on this notion of love, and yet that's not love. It destroys love. It's control. It's control. It what's that word like?
Constricts. What?
Yeah, constricts or strangles love. Not love. Our experience of it, because when we have those expectations, we shut off our own. Love is a currency. It's a resonance, and you can feel it. You can walk into the room and feel that experience. It's an invisible force. You can't see it. You can't hold on to it. You can't control it. But it's a happening. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful happening, and it extends. Just today, this beautiful man in this room here, hi Ethan, who's filming this, I walked in and just saw his face, and it's like, wow, it's so beautiful to be with you. I have a love for him, who he is. And I think that's where life really gets beautiful, is when you recognize, whatever you want to call it. If you're not a believer in God, if you are, it's like we're all children of God. If you're not, it's like the same force that breathes my breath, breathes yours. And so that there's this interconnectedness of this oneness, and all of a sudden this equality, or I don't know that equality is the right word, but this meeting point, this juncture that I was created, you were created, and I'm going through this human experience, you're going through this human experience. We all experience, life and like death and, all this human experience, or not enoughness. And it's like, what? So such sweet compassion and appreciation for us, everyone. I mean, how could you not? Yep. And I think when you have that lens, they're this, they're this political party, they're this religion, they're this whatever race, they're this, that. It's like, okay, that is a description, that is an identity, that might be a facet, but that's not who you are. That's not who I am. We are so much more beautiful and complex and intricate. I don't know that that's even the word.
I know our friend Mickey Singer talks about open and close. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit?
Well, you can feel intrinsically inside yourself when you're open and connected and feeling that there's a spaciousness inside you. There's a willingness, there's a receptivity, there's an aliveness to life, and, closing is, feels very different. It feels tight. It feels constricted. It can feel fearful because you're believing your thoughts, Mm-hmm. It's humbling, and we all I experienced that dance. I know what it feels like to feel that heavy density of feeling like, and feeling fear, or that tightness or constriction, and what it feels like on the other side of that,
Even if you're just like, yep, mm-hmm. Nope. To people that you really love, mm-hmm. that shortness is a closing, is a constriction of.
It is
constriction of the faucet. We modulate our love. If they do this, we give them this response. If they do that, they get this response. Mm-hmm. That's closing. That's opening and closing. That's what we mean, I think, when we talk about that. And when I learned that, and then tuning into that feeling, it's a great little yardstick
Well, I think that's one of the gifts of this human experience is that, or the, I don't know if it's a gift. Well, I think it is a gift, is that we are all responsible for our life. And as well, that inner tapestry or that inner discord or inner harmony, you know? And so, if you're feeling that resistance or if you're feeling that tightness or that constriction, less pleasant, it's a gift of inquiry or even identifying, tuning in, what am I even believing in order to be experiencing this? Because it's a belief or it's a story, it's a narrative. Mm-hmm. And it's usually happening this way, something from yesterday. If you think of if all of your life was completely erased up till this very moment, then all would be experiencing is this moment, the sensations inside of ourselves, what we see, what we feel, what we perceive. And think about it, if you just literally walked into this planet, it's like, what?
Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind.
This beautiful reality.
Yes.
This beautiful moment. This exact moment. All you have to do is close your eyes to tap into it. You know what? My heart's beating. I woke up this morning. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll see my feet on the ground. And I'm like, oh, hello. I don't know. I have this body, this thing that carries me around. It blows my mind. And that when I think of that miracle, I fall in love. I'm like, wow, I'm really grateful to be alive today. Life can change in an instant. My dad, was driving, we were just talking last night, and he was driving down the street the other day, and this truck drove by, and this really big block of wood hit the front of his vehicle. And he was like it, number one, beyond startling him, he thought a bomb went off. He didn't know what happened, but he was like life can change in an instant. Yep. In an instant. We just never know when our last breath will be. And I think it's beautiful to live it so fully, so utterly, and leave nothing on the table, so that, there's a fullness to life. I don't know. I think it's a beautiful experience to get into bed and feel like, whoa, what a lived day. That's love. Mm-hmm. That's love.
It's true. Absolutely.
And if you're in a relationship, if you're not, if you have children, if you don't, if you have parents, if you have friends, whatever, if you're straight, if you're gay, if you're whatever's true for you, however love expresses or life expresses as you, that's really what this is all all about. And, I wanted to say one more thing about, when you mentioned about Tony and I and the acceptance, I think one of the most gorgeous recognitions when you realize that it's I am you, you are me. And so, at the beginning,
stop right there though. Explain that.
Okay. Well, the same, I have judgments, I have fears. Okay. I feel sadness, you feel so we have that meeting point. So it's if I'm she's this or he's doing that or she's so, it's well,
find all the places that you are too.
Because can't you?
Of course.
If you've felt not enough, if you felt I can't do this, if you felt I can't. We've all been there. Mm-hmm. We've all been there. And so how can I, or how, you can, because mind judges, but I think that's just the recognition that it's I don't know, somewhere along the line, after all these years, you start to recognize gosh, who am I to point the finger? Who am I to point the finger? Because somebody's yelling or, they're speaking in a harsh voice or they're cursing or they're slamming the door or they're this. I've done that. I've done that all.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So who the heck am I to, if you were drinking and me showing up that day and you were drinking, well, what have I done to numb myself? Many things, we all have. And I think that's the beauty of the recognition that that's where we all come together. That's the true oneness, that we are all, brothers and sisters on this path. If that doesn't feel true to you, we are all, but we are. Mm-hmm. No matter where we come from, we are all in this human experience. It looks different for you than it does for me. For those of you listening at home, maybe you're driving, maybe you're walking on the beach, maybe you have this on your iPhone, maybe you're cooking something, but we all do these things. We're all experiencing life. And I think that that is extraordinary. And that gets missed because there's so much innocent focus about our differences or what separates us. But I think there's this beautiful, magnificent universe of what unites us. And, we didn't just like stumble into life. It's a miracle. You know what I mean? Like, what the heck? Life is a miracle. The fact that we are alive is a miracle. And so that's love in itself. To love life. That doesn't mean that you love everything that happens. It doesn't mean that everything that happens is pleasant. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to die. You're not going to experience loss. You're not going to experience pain. But the beauty of it, the mess of it, the pain of it, it's life. And because we're experiencing that, we're alive. And I think that's incredible.
And the balm, you often use the word balm, the balm that love can be in this life that does entail at times
Yes.
loss and grief and struggle. Then to know someone's love, that's pretty miraculous too.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
It's just so beautiful how God places these unexpected gifts of, a human through a glance, through a reaching out, through somebody holding your hand, holding the space for you in an unexpected way. A hello, a smile, the warmth of that, the currency, the resonance of that, and what that feels like. That's love. It's the most simple, ordinary, what one may even perceive to be mundane, and yet so incredibly profound. That's love.
In all forms.
In all forms.
Sometimes unexpected.
Yes.
So I was going to mention when I'm bringing up finding love, let's say through dating apps, which is such a common experience. And I just want to be so clear. I have zero judgment of that. I've used them myself successfully and unsuccessfully, even though there's no such thing. And what I do think we maybe should at least be aware of is we had a friend over for dinner the other day. And he is a dad. He has two sons in their 20s. And he was telling us how he and his wife had sat with their sons and their sons' girlfriends. And they were talking about the experience of dating apps and what that's like and how now, and I'm not putting this on them because I absolutely know this is exactly what I did. Like you set your filters, right? So you think like, oh, there's plenty of fish out there. And then we narrow our filters to like, this height and this eye color and this, just like the most ridiculous prerequisites for things. And so then by the time it's all said and done, you are working with like a 3% stripe of the potential population. You're wondering like, where are they? I can't find them. It's like, no, you've eliminated them. And so what I've taken away, what life has actually shown me in my experience is be surprised by those that will love you and by those that you will be called to love. And they might not fit into your little filters.
Yes.
But, if you say that we're all children of God, and if you're a believer or not a believer, if you believe that something at least created all of us or all of this, then you're offering that to some kind of a higher power. So, and I hope that, we can see that there's got to be something greater than us. And so that force must be more creative than anything we can imagine.
Yes.
And so if you're limiting to like, they have to be this tall and, they have to speak 3 languages and they have to be great at this. And it's like, we're dumbing it down. And like, what about the creative? Tone teaches about the most important things. The ultimate success formula is you have to stay flexible and you have to be resourceful and you got to get creative. And these are the things, just like in anything else that will make you quote unquote successful. I think when we're talking about love, even is like, get creative. Don't just work with this one little, like, this is all I want. And this is all that will work for me. It's like, where's the fun in that? Be surprised. Let it, get messy, like you said.
It's true. And a lot of times those qualities, they're about attraction.
Right.
It's not necessarily even about love. And love looks different. I mean, you look at this unique constellation of this family. And for those of you who didn't possibly tune into our Mother's Day podcast, Mary carried our daughter. She was the surrogate and ended up being an adoptive parent of our daughter. And that came through love. That came through this unexpected constellation of these human souls that were brought together and brought this, beautiful being into existence. And the unexpectedness is this chosen family. And there's a sharing, and it magnifies love. It makes life more beautiful in that sharing. And it's unexpected. I never imagined it. It's gorgeous and beautiful, and of course has its challenges as well. But no different than any human life would have its challenges, you know.
Every relationship,
yes,
every form of love.
But it's so, I couldn't have created that. I couldn't have wrote this script, but it came out of a painful circumstance. It was birthed out of, not being able to, or miscarrying so many times and not being able to carry a child myself. And so this unexpectedness of this, this aggregate of these beautiful humans that came together, that humbles me and amazes me. And I'm not that intelligent or cool to think it up. And that would be missed on an app. Not to say that you cannot fall in love on an app. I think they're, wonderful because we can, life offers us love anywhere. Love defies the odds, or certainly this family has defied the odds or the unexpectedness of how this amazing constellation has come together. And I look at our daughter and she has more love, not less. And because of it, and you get to experience what it's like to be a mother, to be a parent, because of that really courageous choice that you made to carry her. I'm blessed with the gift to have a daughter that I wouldn't have without, you, without this amazing family, and Tone being a father. And this, it blows me away and it humbles me every day. And I think, just talking to people and people in our life, I think, a lot of times parents are coming together, or human beings are coming together. Maybe you're married before, maybe you weren't, maybe you had children, maybe you didn't, maybe you want to have a child again, whatever it looks like, or, you're hanging out with them, and that's really cool, and that's enough. It looks, life in love looks so beautifully different and as diverse as it possibly can, as we are humans. And I think that's gorgeous.
I do too. And that doesn't mean I don't wake up most mornings and think, how did I get here? How did this happen?
What do I always say?
God.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
That's your answer only every time. And it's true. We told, you guys have a friend who has a mutual friend who is the Canadian psychologist and author, Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yes.
So one day they actually came over to the house, and Jordan and his wife. And so I remember this day, it was Tony and you and myself and baby. And it was the first time we'd never met. We had no backstory on each other. So you were kind of introducing you and kind of our family to them. And so you kind of went through the whole thing. Like, Tony and I have been married over 20 years and we have been on the path to starting a family, and that hasn't been without its challenges. And, so Mary actually carried our child. She's our surrogate, but we all live together now, and we actually legally pursued third parent adoption. And so this is the unique constellation that we're living by. And I remember him sitting there and just like taking it all. And by the way, he's such a bright mind and extremely articulate.
He's so brilliant.
He speaks with precision, and his language has such accuracy. And I'm an admirer of his work. His biblical lectures, I think, are some of the best resources on the subject that exists. And he was, taking this all, I'm going to say it again, we had just met, and Sage gives him our kind of family nutshell in 30 seconds. And he was like, that must require a lot of negotiation. And I'm not disagreeing with him, but I remember hearing him use that word. And I was like, in my head, I had like kind of a head tilt, like, I wonder what negotiation means to him. I'm sure he has a very precise interpretation of that word. And I got lost in my own, like, oh, negotiation, interesting, that's what that would mean to him. Okay. And I'm just like, and before I could even think to myself, but that doesn't really resonate with you and Tony and I in this situation, you looked at him extremely respectfully. I want to make that really clear, and just said, no, not when there's love as a base, not when there's virtue, not when you're all in servitude to each other. And I remember that moment, and it almost brings tears to my eyes, because your answer to nearly everything, Sage Robbins, is love. Like, God, love, God. Like, it's one of the two, pretty much, to everything. And do you remember that moment?
I remember that moment. I think I shared that. I said it was my experience, or our experience, that it was the currency of love, that there really wasn't a negotiation. I wanted you supported. You wanted me supported. We all wanted each other supported. And it extends beyond that. It's, my mama and daddy, your mama, there's like family all of a sudden really grew. There was Tone's family, your family, my family, and all these humans coming together in the name of bringing this little one into existence. That was extraordinary to me. Mm-hmm. And then, for any of you who have been out there and, have miscarried and lost a child, it was over a 20-year journey, and it was painful, and it was beautiful. And it was, I never imagined being here today, certainly at a much later stage of life, never my wildest. And so to have that come to fruition in such a holistic, I'm thinking of holistic, bless you, that it is and continues to be one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. And if I thought it should have looked this way, or love should have looked this way or that way, or the family was, just this, I would have robbed myself from this experience. This merger of hearts. It's so humbling. It's so beautiful. Billy Beck, who was just here, he's the godfather of our daughter. A very dear sister and friend who's the godmother, and
who lives in Israel.
And I
Even though she was born in China.
Yes.
See the tentacles that love can branch out to.
Mm-hmm. And love sees no color. Love sees no religion. Love sees no race. Love sees no age. Love simply loves. And that is, love transcends all the illusions or delusions of what mind tells us about what a relationship or our life is going to be. And if you're simply open and receptive enough to be amazed and surprised, and if you can extend possibly that 2 or 3%, whatever you said on your, when you're swiping this way or you're on an app and looking for this person to look a certain way, if you have that thought, we can miss. You never imagined that your family or that life would look this way, that you'd be, you know what I mean? I never imagined this, never in my wildest freaking dreams. And I'm humbled by it. I'm moved by it. I'm inspired by it. I'm stretched by it. I'm schooled by it. It's quite a path. Mm-hmm. And love does that.
Mm-hmm. I wish that people could, if you're watching this now, pull the scroll bar back and listen to what she just said again, because it's it's not, and Tone always says, a relationship and love is this place that you go to give and not a place that you go to get. So if you have this expectation that this partner of yours is just going to meet your every need, just be open to it looking so differently than you thought. Not just the partner that the whole constellation, I call it, because this is even there's so many pieces of this that I'm just even when I see friends that I haven't seen in years, and I'm like, I know you're not going to believe this, but this is what I'm doing these days. People are wait, what now? And I just think if you are willing to open your heart and say, I want to grow and I want to learn and I want to be stretched and I want to see what life might be out there, show me something. Isn't that what love, isn't that the fun? When you think about, if you've had any experience of the excitement and the newness, you can have that if you take your filters off and say, I'm open to anything. I really am.
Yes.
And
the newness can be, my mom and dad were here a couple months ago, and my mom and I had a moment We're sitting at the table and our daughter was sitting next to us, and, she took my hand, and I can just feel my mom patting my hand, and, just that touch, that moment, lingers with me. Love sits with somebody who's transitioning from this world. That's love. Love, from birth to death, love extends. And, we do it really well as human beings. Well, not all of us, but, a lot of times when children are young, there's not a lot of expectation. You can't expect much from a child. They're going to be, they're going to do what they do. But, to be able to see with the lens of that willingness of purity and innocence, to know that no matter what the behavior, just like you, there's an innocence inside of me. There's an innocence inside of you, no matter what the behavior. And I think that is a powerful understanding to remember. And that is where we all meet. Mm-hmm. And so how can I point the finger at another? I need to point the finger back at myself, because whatever I think you should or shouldn't be doing, somewhere in the line, we've all been unconscious. We've all missed. We've all been harsh. We've all been unkind. We've all yelled. We've all probably thrown something or smashed something, we've all, as in this human experience, there's this weird dynamic of, oh, he's so this or she's so that, or can you believe this? And it's like, yeah, I can believe it. In this human experience, I can believe anything.
If you've never walked into an Apple store with your phone in 1,000 pieces, have you ever really been in love? Just me? Can't be. It's true. But you even said, like, we're good at it or we're not.
Good at what?
At love, or I said that we're wired for it, but we don't necessarily know how to do it. And you talk about there are skills to it. It is muscle, and it is something that, like, what do you think?
I don't know if it's a skill.
Tell me, you don't think it's a skill?
I think it's more of an art. I think it's more of a recognition of an allowance of a state of being. I think it's more of an offering. And that's not to say that there's not very useful tools and strategies and insights that helps us navigate one's own self, never mind another. So there's not to say, but I don't know that that's the skill for love. I think that's the skill for managing the human.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think different than love.
Okay, you're right.
I don't know if that,
No, you're right.
Does
I
that
don't think
land?
love is a skill. You're exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think love is a skill, but I think, like, sustaining it and nurturing it, especially a relationship with human beings. That's something that
to navigate
takes practice.
Ourselves and another. We could
Yes.
use some skills.
Mm-hmm. So it just in an effort to provide some practical little takeaways, we often this book is by Dr. Julia Caldwell, a friend of ours, who we found. She lives in Colorado, and she wrote a book called The Relationship Skills Workbook. And Tony's taught a few things at different programs, the relationship program, at Date with Destiny, but really simple ideas. Like, he teaches this process called SO, sensation, emotion, and what you want. So just how to communicate with a partner.
Yes.
You list a sensation in your body. That's an unarguable thing. Nobody can argue with a sensation in your body. And then the emotion you're feeling. And she taught at one of the conferences that you guys hosted that there's these 5 primary emotions. And she said them in a rhyme, like in a mnemonic that was sad, mad, glad, scared, excited. You remembered?
Yes. No, I'm remembering that. And I want to just provide one context for the sensations. Mary said something really beautiful, because it's an inarguable statement. What that assists us to do is to drop the blame, rather than you made me feel this way. You yelled at me and you know what I mean? It drops that. It's just, I'm feeling this sensation. Sorry, Mary, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You didn't interrupt at all. And that's exactly what you're saying is exactly, there's something in here that's so powerful. So Julie, one of the tidbits in this book is we're always moving out. Our goal is always moving out of blame and into responsibility, which is something I just, like, that to me is an essential skill. Like Tone would say, write that down, move ourselves out of blaming the other and into responsibility of self. And so I was going to say, there's all these stories when we get going about our partner did this or they did that or our ex, whatever it is, these big, long stories, when really she stood up and she taught there's only those 5 emotions. And it's a really clean way to look at it and say, all right, like, what am I really, if you feel stuck or something, like, what are you really feeling? Are you sad? Are you mad? Are you glad? Are you excited? Are you scared? Are you a combination of any of those? All of them, maybe? And just like if you feel like in a stalemate with someone that you love, no matter who they are, a partner, a mom, a friend, a coworker, come back to the simple things if you have to. Like, what is the emotion? Are you feeling sad? Is there a loss? Are you mad? Is there an anger? Or is it because of an obstacle that you're facing? Are you excited? Are you scared? Is there a fear or a threat that you're facing? Like, just get simple with it and,
Yes.
Simplify instead of some big long story that takes, 20 minutes to explain.
Well, that is
Move from blame to responsibility.
Yes, Mary. And that's such a profound tool because it drops the narratives and the blame and the external demonization and allows us to take responsibility for our experience. And that's loving. It's loving to take responsibility. It's loving to drop our blames. It's loving to drop our judgments of the other. It's loving to know that, hey, you don't have to charm me. You don't have to entertain me. You can simply be who you are, and I see you. And I think that's the beautiful gift of life. That's a beautiful gift of love, is piercing that lens of, the projections and seeing the beautiful, kind soul that is, behind those layers, perfect and whole, as am I, as are you, whoever is listening. That's where we all meet.
I told you she ends every sentence, and that's where we all meet.
Well, I have to pay attention to that.
I like it. I think it's a great reminder.
It is, because it connects us. It unites us. It aligns us. It reminds us of that, of our oneness rather than our separateness. And I find that to be a beautiful lens and a beautiful reminder.
You often offer grace before going to bed, before getting in the car. What I mean by that is anytime you and I have had any kind of disturbance.
Or misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding. That's a better word for it. I tend to go to my room and think about the misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, this says a lot about you, Sage, is I'll hear like a knock on the door and you'll come in and you'll be like, I just want to tidy something up, or is there anything you want me to understand? Or you'll always seek to, my parents did this too, and I'm grateful for the example, but I do think it's something that's so important in any kind of relationship, is before bed, before you get in your car.
Yes.
Just because life is that precious.
To lean in, to lean in and to offer, because, if you think of love being, attributes of it or an expression of it is gentleness and kindness. If you weren't that, if I wasn't that in a moment, if I was harsh in my words, or if I was short, or if I was curt, or, and in the moment that I come back to a clarity of mind and heart, I want to take responsibility for that and clear that for you and for me, for you and for me. It feels unpleasant to be in a state of fear, to be in a state of resistance. So to come and offer kindness is not only kind to you, it's kind to me. So for those of you who are listening, and life is offering us that opportunity every moment. And I pray out of, this entire conversation, if you have one takeaway, just the reminder that your presence, the reminder that your smile, the reminder that your tone of voice, a glance matters to your children, to your beloved, to your parents, to your friends, to your coworkers. Let's love this world up.
Let's love this world up.
I trust, if you're listening, that there is a longing or a yearning inside of you to express, the deepest and most sincere part of yourself. And I think life is offering us that opportunity every moment. So don't miss that opportunity to love.
We don't need an excuse. We don't need a reason to love.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your open hearts, your open minds. And thank you for walking this path. We'll see or hear from you again somewhere in
Love
this
you.
existence. Yes, love you. Thank you. Does anybody want a water, a cup of coffee, a banana? I might have more than that, a soup.
Small dog.
I'll take the dog.
And I share that because those of you who are listening, would you like a sip of water? Because your eyes are
You know, this is an emotional story, but I am going to
I don't know if you're crying or
I need
coughing.
To get a drink of water.
Okay,
I'm
get
so
a drink
sorry.
of water, please. I'm sweating. Sorry, we had just a little tickle and a cough break.
Cough drop break. Okay, Tone, so we're just going to move.
What are we gonna do?
Kind of everybody just like come. Sage, you come
Here, Tone, you sit here then.
Come there.
Yeah, you want to sit right in the middle, Tone?
Okay.
Okay. Can you
You want
move?
the light behind us like that?
There's two over there. Yeah.
Sorry, honey.
There you go. And then we know you got to scoop, Tonester.
Okay.
Ethan, what do you think?
No.
There we go.
So you always say love is our nature. And so I've asked myself, like, what does that mean? And only in having a baby around, I've seen, like,
Yes.
for example, we've got this little baby that sometimes we push around, and in some occasions she's out and we interact with utter strangers. And of
You
course,
mean push you out in a stroller?
in a
or something.
stroller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
push her
Kind
around,
of funny.
boss her around. She bosses us around. Let's be serious. No. So, let me try that again. So our little baby, to prove the fact that, because I've asked myself, like, is love human nature? I believe it is, but I'm like, sometimes people feel like they have the propensity to go in quite a different direction. And then the reaction, the response to a little baby that is elicited universally by, like, you know, you could walk, we have people even that we love, and we know they're like, you know, this grumpy old man out there. They see this baby and it's like lit up with love, which proves to me, like, love is our nature. In these, right, like, I'll go back to Tone's teaching on love of 6 human needs. It's love is an absolute human need. We are wired for it. It sustains our life.
But what is falling in love?
What is it?
Well, how do you even describe it? You know, like, what is this falling? You know, maybe it's that we're, it's a mirrorship. It's reflecting each other's. If you think of even that day when you were talking about the hallway, I was just reflecting the beauty of who you are. And maybe in that moment you forgot. And I think that that's what love does. You know,
Reminds.
if our daughter is, you know, having a wave of an emotion, it's just so, it's kind to be able to just sit down and let her experience and honor what's coming to the surface. That's kind for each of us, never mind ourselves, you know. That's what love does. And I forget. I can forget. And when I do, I'm reminded by these amazing, incredible humans that are all around us. And, curiosity and interest to get to know another, I think is ever so beautiful. I'm looking at you, Ethan, because you're one of them.
It's true. So I would say, if you're listening, like, see who you can fall in love with today. Not in a weird way, but have your eyes be opened to the folks, whoever it is in your life, and, you know, see what's lovable.
Coworkers?
Everybody's lovable.
Yes.
Coworkers.
Yes. We are all so in love. Like our team, I mean, I love each and every one of them. I'm so blown away. I'm so humbled. I enjoy them. I enjoy their minds. I enjoy what they bring to the table because they're each on their path, you know, doing their own inner work, taking responsibility and offering grace. Love does offer grace.